What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock, what you should be looking after for the future, and what the data is essentially suggesting for NIO. I'm also going to break down what's going on in the overall market, how this may affect NIO, what's going on with the news, and also something very awesome that NIO put on their Twitter page, which still makes me very bullish for the long-term future. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, but benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any of these 12 free stocks could be a free NIO share, a free Tesla share, or a mix of all of them. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 10 days. Check it out before they run out. With that set out of the way, let's get on with the video. So looking at NIO, this thing was up about 2.19% for the day, a little bit red in the after hours. So overall, NIO is kind of like pushing up a little bit, then coming down a bit as well. So overall, guys, we are kind of flat for the time being, but we do have a kind of like an inverse head and shoulders like formation that kind of formed right here. It's not perfect by any means, but this is kind of like suggesting that NIO has potential to push up a little bit from here. Now, given everything that's going on in the markets, I'm still not in the best of states, guys. I'm not like extremely bullish on NIO short term. I think we're more likely to actually end up coming down with the market. But for the long term, over the next couple of months, couple of years, I'm extremely, extremely bullish. And I want to break down kind of like what my outlook is for NIO going forward. So in the markets, looking at max pain, NIO's max pain for the week was about $12. We did come close to it. We started to push to about that 11 point, what is that, like 11.2 range. We did start to approach it, considering the fact that just yesterday alone, we saw this thing in the tens. So we did start to approach it. However, we didn't come all the way to it. And this is just because of the fact that the market makers were incentivized to help us push up. But external factors are causing some weakness in NIO because of its relative strength. So when you look at that data, looking at this from this time frame, we could see that we are continuing to drop down as the market is actually starting to push up a bit. And NIO, in turn, is still at a pretty low value compared to how high it used to be. Now, when you compare that to SPY and like the NASDAQ, they're pushing up a lot more than how much NIO is moving. That's why the price price ratio is starting to drop even more, which is just another sign of weakness, at least for the short term. However, many analysts are still saying this is a very good buying opportunity, so it doesn't necessarily scare me in any way, shape, or form. And when these actually tend to be red days for NIO, we're pretty flat for the most part, so I don't really consider that the best. But I wanted to note this right here. Today, or at least like the recent data from about 2 days ago, we could see the shorting was going up like crazy. We're starting to see the shorts kind of like piling in, pushing down NIO as much as they can. And that's essentially playing a big role in the way NIO is moving. Now, there are lots of big tensions involving the US and China when it comes to chip production and whether or not these deals are going to kind of continue, whether or not production is going to continue for US companies in China. I can't go into the full details about this, but I will say one thing: this is having a very negative effect on sentiment involving China, and this is affecting Chinese companies very, very heavily. So that's the reason, that's at least that's part of the reason why NIO was coming down for quite a bit of time. There's also uncertainty about the markets when it comes to inflation. The UK Prime Minister is going to be not re-elected, but they're going to be choosing a new one. So there are all these things going on in the markets, guys. I want to talk about this now. When you look at the S&P 500 midterm elections year seasonal patterns since 1946, it's important to note that the market has a tendency of pushing up in October. Then by the last week of October, we tend to get a big drop. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. Considering that midterms are coming up pretty soon with the FOMC meeting, it could come a little bit later, but it is still very likely we're going to get a big reversal within the next 2 weeks, in my opinion. So what does this mean for NIO? Well, the good thing is, if you look at the markets, let's look at SPY real quick. SPY got a very nice push today. We're starting to push it pretty darn hard, showing lots of signs of strength. And what's interesting about it is if we get a break in this zone, we have the potential to retest 375. I think we actually came there in the after hours, but we could hold this for Monday. Now, if we continue to rally for a little bit more time, we have the potential to go to about 378 to 380. And after that, it's a little bit less certain what we're going to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get another big rejection just like this one right here. Let me just show you the previous one. It's actually, let me find it, like right, hold on, it's right, hold on. It's actually right here. Let me actually use the 2 hour time frame to show it to you guys. I kind of zoomed out too much. But anyways, right here, all right, right about here, when SPY hits this 380 level, right here, huge rejection came. We ended up just downtrending for quite a while. Then after that, we ended up retesting this 348 zone, followed by a big bounce from there. So SPY is re-entering this heavy resistance zone. If you look at the Nasdaq, very similar situation. We got rejected off this 11,230 zone. We also have a gap up here. So we could end up filling the gap on the Nasdaq and get a big rejection too, because we do have another gap down here on both SPY and Nasdaq. We have a gap down below. So I am anticipating a little bit more upside before a big rejection for both of these. Now for Tesla, there is something a little bit different. That's the fact that Tesla has been pushing up just a little bit. We did see a slight push up today. However, Tesla's entering a very big chop zone. Tesla has a tendency of seeing lots of chop, lots of big rejections off this 218 to 220 level, not to mention that 226 level. So in this like 220 to 226 level, very strong resistance. If Tesla does fill the gap here, I wouldn't be surprised if we struggle to really kick off from there. So all these factors are basically telling us that look, and one more thing before I talk about NIO, Elon Musk is looking very fixated on actually buying Twitter. So if he does end up doing this, not the best for Tesla stock. He does seem very fixated on it, which is kind of like an implication that he may end up selling some Tesla shares to make it happen. So many things out there are suggesting, very nuanced data. What's good about NIO, however, is the ET7 is a fantastic car. They're doing lots of deliveries in Germany. And I do believe NIO's future is still incredibly bright, especially as they're expanding in Europe. But for the short term, like I mentioned, the markets are not looking the best. NIO has kind of like a very crooked looking inverse head and shoulders like formation. I mean, it's not perfect, but sometimes we could see formations like this that end up working out. I can kind of give you guys an example. Let me see if I can find it. I don't think I have a perfect example, but kind of like right here, you guys could see we have this like very sloppy looking head and shoulders that formed. So right here, NIO was like trading sideways, came down, forming a head. Another shoulder formed here before we pushed up. You could even argue that these two things are like the shoulders, and this is like the big push up. But anyways, we sometimes get these very ugly looking formations, and this does look like what we're about to see right here. So this could be kind of like an inverse head and shoulders. NIO could push up to this 11.43 level. If we get enough momentum, if there's enough people buying NIO, we could even push to about $12 if the market does continue to rally for a little bit longer. But then after that, guys, it's not looking so good. NIO has been on this big downtrend. It's been going on for the last couple of weeks, kind of like how the market was. The market is starting to reverse, but NIO is just not holding these levels too well. And it's looking like this thing might start to come down even lower very soon. It's very unfortunate to hear that, guys. However, I'm not losing faith in the company whatsoever. I'm still very bullish. There are some external things and geopolitical factors that are getting in the way, but it's not necessarily the end of the world because I'm still confident that NIO is going to be able to produce enough cars, more and more of the cars. They're going to deliver a lot of cars in China itself to other countries around the world. And even if the US and China are not in the best of states, it is still very possible for NIO to succeed. You could still be very bullish. China is a huge market, so maybe the European market. NIO could do very well there. And when it comes to the USA, they're still very nonpartisan. They're still very fixated on coming to the US. I still think that's very possible. And I'm not going to lose faith. I'm still very bullish in the company. But for the short term, like I said, downside is still very, very possible. So what am I anticipating for NIO? A push to about 11.5 is very possible if we're like super bullish out of nowhere. If the market's going to continue to rally for a little longer, we could go as high as about $12, 12.2, and after that, see a big rejection back down to the tens, unfortunately. And I say this because this is what historically tends to happen to the markets during this time frame, and also because of the fact that there's lots of uncertainty. Earnings are going to not be the best, in my opinion, at least especially for like Q4 and maybe Q1 of next year. But for the short term, I'd be very careful in this market, especially if you're trying to buy and trade NIO. With that said and done, I'm going to give you guys another update on my specific price prediction for Monday. On Sunday, I'm going to release the video. So be on the lookout for another video tomorrow where I talk about something else that's big about NIO. And with that out of the way, thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. And I'll see you guys in the next one. NIO to the moon, because the long-term future is still incredibly bright. And peace out.